Good morning. Good morning. This is the February 2024 Women in Aviation Land of Enchantment meeting. This month, we are hosting a Black History panel, and we have three panelists that will be joining us to talk about their experiences. With us is Shonesha Rogers, and I'll let her introduce herself here shortly. Our other two panelists, Anthea Miners and Chastity Anderson, should also join us here shortly. So, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And yeah, so Shonesha, and make sure if I'm mispronouncing your name, please let me know. But why don't you start out with an introduction, and then we can jump in. You muted.
My bad. You said my name perfectly. I'm Shonesha Rogers, live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, been here since 2009. I'm an air traffic controller at the Albuquerque Tower Tracon located on Kirtland Air Force Base. I've been a controller since 2017. It was my first aviation experience and my first exposure to aviation, but now I love it. Can't see myself doing anything else.
Now I'm muted. Sounds like it's going to be you and me talking today until the other ladies join us. And so I really appreciate your time. And folks on the Zoom meeting, please feel free to jump in and ask any questions as we go along. This is certainly not just with the questions we have identified, but we'd certainly like to hear from you as well. So I'm Danita and I am the IT director for vendor and performance management at Virgin Galactic. And my role is not so much aviation and fun stuff like air traffic controlling, what have you. I'm on the information technology side, but we are an aerospace company. So that's why I'm here. I'm also the vice president for Women in Aviation Land of Enchantment. So Shonesha, let's just jump in. Let's talk about who would you say was an inspirational figure or role model that got you interested in aviation, air traffic control? Yeah.
Like I said, originally before this is my first aviation exposure. And before I got into air traffic, I actually didn't even know it existed. But my husband is an air traffic controller as well. And so it really just came about because, we have off the street bids occasionally. And he's like, you may as well try it. Like, you may like it. Like, he's like, we didn't know about it before. I'm in it now and I love it. And I think that you'd be good at it and that you'd really like it. So really, I guess I could say my husband, because he was the one who introduced me to it and exposed me to it and encouraged me to apply to even get here.
Nice, nice. In jumping in, did you find that there were any roadblocks or things that maybe you questioned about yourself, and then eventually learned that you were capable of doing?
That actually has been like my whole training experience as a controller. Because I didn't have any aviation experience or background, I was very intimidated. And I kind of came into it feeling kind of small. It was a lot of new terminology. When you learn air traffic, you're essentially learning a new language. You're learning a different way to communicate with a different group of people than I was used to communicating with. So that was like my major roadblock. I would say it was like the imposter syndrome, the mental roadblocks of not feeling like I belong here. Eventually, I think after I certified, which was like almost 3 years ago, I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I do this job just as well as anybody else here. I'm capable. I can get better. I will continue to get better, but I belong here. And so once I grasped that 4 or 5 years in, it made things a lot easier. But that was a really big roadblock for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think as people of color and as women, we tend to do that, right? We tend to identify this imaginary, perfect being person and try to measure ourselves against that and question our own abilities. And so you were capable when you started the training, not when
Yep.
you ended the training. So that's good.
Hmm.
So you're I saw where you're a union representative and you're in air traffic control, very strenuous job. Is that the pinnacle for you? Where do you want to go next? What do you see as the ultimate goal in your career?
That's a very good question. We talk about this at work all the time because for air traffic, progression looks like going to higher level facilities. And when I first finished training, it was so strenuous that I was like, you know what? I'm never training again. I'll just be in Albuquerque forever. But now as time has gone on and I've gotten used to it and more accustomed to being certified, I can see myself moving up. I could see myself going to a higher level facility in time. I'm in no rush because I do still think that I'm sharpening my skills at this level, but I definitely could see myself moving up to a higher level facility in maybe a bigger city.
Yeah, that's interesting because I would think that the job is the same, right? It doesn't matter in terms of the bigger facility. It's similar to I think a saying about your you know big fish in a small pond versus the small fish in the big pond and what have you. But I think you have the opportunity to impress upon others, right? No matter where you are, and you take that skill and that who you are to influence, no matter the size of the organization.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I'm curious. The recently in the news, there's been a lot of talk about um, uh, the claims that question the qualifications of Black commercial pilots. Um, and OBAP, Organization of Black Professional or Black Aerospace Professionals, responded to those questions and wanted to dispel the narrative that was put out there, not even that there was no truth to it. And so these barriers tend to come up often. Talk about some of the barriers that you've experienced, and then I want to open it up to others on the call to talk about some of the barriers that you've experienced, whether as Black women, as Black people, as anyone. I just want to talk about that. But yeah, Shonesha, tell us your story.
I can honestly say that in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to barriers, I think I've been really blessed. I work at a facility that's generally pretty supportive. With that being said, there are still little, I guess one could call them microaggressions. And I think it's more female related than it is race related in this particular instance. Air traffic is still very much a male sport. The percentage for women in air traffic is extremely small. And you can imagine that the percentage for Black women is even smaller. But I think that has been the biggest thing that I've experienced is just the subtle interactions that kind of make you question yourself as a woman. And you have to continuously come back and center yourself and continuously say, like I said before, I am worthy and I am capable. Because there's a mental thing that happens where people can make you feel like um, you don't know as much when you speak up. Sometimes it feels like your words are not validated. And so you have to be really centered and be able to do that validation for yourself. So I guess if I could say anything, barriers for me have been mostly, like I said before, mental. I haven't experienced any overt barriers. I've been allowed to train unencumbered. I haven't had those issues. It's just mostly been the mental stuff. Um, and just having to remind yourself that you're worthy and just as intelligent, and your ethics and your hard work will get you just as far as everybody else.
That's good. That's good. Well, that those microaggressions can be just as startling and be as impactful.
Mhm.
Anyone else on the call have any experiences with any barriers that they were able to overcome, or getting into aerospace or aviation, or just in your career in general? Maybe not. It's early Saturday morning. Maybe I'll just talk about some of my experiences. Early on, I going into college, I was um, a minority. I received a minority scholarship, minority student scholarship, or what have you. And so it I thought of it as being wonderful, right? This is great. Got a way to go to college, and but as I got into my career, and I listed that, right, I was really proud of that accomplishment. It was diminished, right? That was a secondary um, scholarship, and it was only given because of the color of my skin, not so much the aptitude or intelligence that I brought. And so I wouldn't necessarily, I would agree with you, I don't necessarily think it was a barrier, but it was a diminishing of my experience, my value, the things that I had accomplished. Yeah, that was it was interesting. Anyone else that might want to share? All right, we'll keep moving then. So maybe talk about. Oh, sorry, TJ, you were going to jump in.
Yeah, and not really anything to share, but I wanted to ask Shanisha something about air traffic control, and just that you mentioned not a lot of women and not a lot of Black women, um, and you did mention kind of what got you interested in it was your husband. What got him interested in it? Like how did he get into that field?
So he was actually working at Whole Foods, and he got an email from his dad that said, "Hey, here's this opportunity to make six figures. This is a little bit of what you would be doing. This is how you get into it." And there was like a testing that he could go to. And so for him, he knew he didn't want to be at Whole Foods for the rest of his life. That just wouldn't be sustainable for a full career. And so he was like, I'll just try it. Like, I've never heard of this air traffic thing. I don't even really know what it is. I'm not sure what I'm getting myself into, but I'll give it a try. So he essentially stepped out on faith and went and took the test, um and he got in, and he had a very strenuous training experience. I think he probably fought with some imposter syndrome as well. But now he loves it. So yeah, that's how he got in.
Okay, and I know the washout rate for that program is really high, like 43%, maybe something like that washout rate, or maybe
Yeah,
even
it's out of control. Mm-hmm.
like I mean, how did you guys focus, study, and then once you were done and made it, you mentioned you may not want to do any further schooling, but I feel like if you did that, you might as well go get your, whatever. Like if you could do that, I feel like you could do damn near anything. So is there anything further that you want to do? You did kind of mention, but I don't know as far as degrees, if you have bachelor's, master's, if you plan on working on a doctorate, but I feel like if you can do the air traffic control, you can pretty much do whatever. So
For us, if I did something educated related, how do I explain it? I can go through higher levels of air traffic without getting any more like degrees per se. My particular degree was in family studies, child development with a minor in psychology. So as you can see, I'm a little bit far away from what I actually went to college for. So my degree only helped me in air traffic in the sense that I needed 3 years of college in order to qualify to be a controller. So our higher levels would just mean for me that if I decide to go to, let's say, Atlanta, for instance, I'm still doing and with their runway and all that stuff. So, and what makes it
Did we lose your audio?
Yeah. So did her audio go away, or is it just me?
Yeah, Shonesha, your audio. We're losing your audio. So, I'm not sure if she hears me.
I don't think she does. Yeah, your audio went away for some reason.
I don't know that she's hearing us. Yeah, I don't know. Shanisha, can you hear us? Yeah, can you say something? Yeah, we can't hear you. No. No.
Yeah, and it was weird too because she was talking and it just
Yeah,
slowly,
it just
slowly
went. It just.
diminished and then it was just gone.
It may have been a phone connected or disconnected automatically. Sometimes mine will transfer over.
Or headset or something like that, AirPods or something like that.
Well, Danita, it's all on you.
It's all me. I'm chatting with Shanisha right now. So
she might, if she goes out of Zoom and comes back in, that might help.
That's what I was going to
to
suggest.
Yeah, disconnect and re-enter. Okay. Yeah, we'll have her do that. Nothing like technology at the time when you really need it to work, right? So, yeah. So,
Can you hear me?
there you are. Yes.
Sorry, y'all. My daughter put on my earbuds and it connected to the computer. I am so sorry.
All good. That's hilarious. All good.
That's what we assume. That's what I assume. That's what happens to me. It's like I'm talking and then all of a sudden it goes out. So connection there. I think you had something you were responding to TJ about the levels at which their air traffic controllers and what would be next for you. I think it's where you were headed with that question. Your response.
Oh, yeah. For the air traffic side, the degrees that I get wouldn't be as effective because what happens is every facility you go to, they train you based on their airspace. So if I want to go to a higher level facility like Atlanta, what makes it higher level would be like the traffic volume there is more than it is here. The complexity of the airport might be higher than it is here. They may have a different mix of traffic that makes it more difficult. So at this point, it's just learning the facilities at the higher levels with the higher complexities and that busier traffic. If I decided to do more education, it would be helpful for me for after I retire from air traffic and I decided I wanted to do something else. Yeah.
I wish your husband was on this call, because I want to ask, like, who's the better air traffic controller between you and him?
Oh, you actually don't need him for that. I can tell you that.
Exactly. Why do we need him here, TJ,
Yeah,
to be
like
able to respond to that question?
I want to be able to hear both responses.
Good deal. All right. So maybe let's talk about giving back, right, and moving forward and helping others, right? We talk about how we can support other Black professionals, other Black people, other Black women, other women in aviation and aerospace. So, what are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I think the biggest thing for me is making sure that Black women know about it. So I know this isn't like exactly down the line of answering your question, but for me, it's exposing more Black women to the field, letting the Black women that I know understand that aviation and aerospace and all of this is available for us, because a lot of times we don't even know these things exist. And then as women decide to try, like my little sister, she went through the application process once, and that was like really important for me to like support her through the application process, and encourage her. I think that's the biggest thing, is when I'm exposed to another Black woman in aviation, is to try to validate her as much as I possibly can. There aren't a lot of Black women in New Mexico, so I'm not interacting with a lot of them here. But when I do meet them, like if I go to other states for events and things, I'm trying my best to be as encouraging as possible, and just kind of hyping up women as I see them. And then the groups on Facebook, I think, are valuable as well, because you see the women pilots getting their licenses and just being so excited about being in aviation. I think those are the little areas where I can chime in, being in the geography that I am.
Yeah, TJ and I joke with some others at Virgin about the few Black people we see in New Mexico, and so, but just throughout the career, Rainey, I think were you going to comment on that? But throughout the career, right, when you see others, you encourage them. I've had the opportunity to be a part of the BLAST program, which is a mentoring program for young Black students, college students who are, not necessarily aspiring to be in aviation or aerospace, but who are just looking for mentors, right? And I think that's important as well. So for a younger generation, helping them, supporting them in ways in which they need, maybe it's resume building or feedback on coursework or how to maneuver, job hunting, searching, and then whether it's peers, right? And peers and others that maybe report to us as our teammates or in the industry, right? I love the comment you made about not necessarily validation, but the fact that you come alongside and say, hey, yeah, hey, we're in this together, right? I see you, and I want to encourage you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, somebody else, yeah, you gonna comment, Rainey?
Oh yeah, and actually, oh wait, let me turn on my video. I don't think it's working. Oh, there it is. Oh, hi. Yes, and I was just gonna say, and actually I pronounced it Ronnie. The A messes everybody.
Ronnie, got it.
Yes, no, as I always say, if the meat's not cooked, it's raw. But I was going to say, I've now been working at Spaceport America for just a year down, living in Las Cruces. And so it's so funny when you're saying trying to give back. And I'm feeling like, it's, for me, like, I feel like I'm just getting settled myself. You know what I mean? But at the same time, and like besides sort of like, aerospace, which is sort of my interest more, I also like astronomy. So I own a telescope. And the amazing thing is that with the club, we go out and do public events at least twice a month. And it's like I said, I like to be out there because most people, when they see somebody owning a telescope, they think of a, older, white man. And so I think just being out there, sort of being a woman, being, sort of Black, just helps, sort of, exactly, how it was said before, just showing that, wow, that, different types of people can do this type of stuff. And I know that I want to do more, but I feel like I'm just myself kind of catching my breath. It's been kind of an interesting journey to get here. But then also with, especially like say with STEM stuff, I find it a double-edged sword sometimes because, like at my role at the spaceport, at the spaceport is the business operations manager, which is really internal affairs. And really like STEM falls under the public information officer. But for a while, we had a transition sort of in that position. And so I was kind of doing all of the STEM, which I love to do. But even as a new person came on, I find people are always coming to me for the STEM stuff. And you know what I mean? And instead of, the other stuff that I'm also sort of good at. And so even though I want to promote STEM at work, I don't want to always be the go-to. It's like, oh, there's the Black woman. We'll go to her, anytime we need, representation or support. So it is kind of a double-edged sword. And I wish I was in a position where I was, able to sort of mentor and do things one-on-one more, which I like to do. It's not like I don't mind the events, like I said, are getting out there and showing people that, yeah, a Black woman can like astronomy. But at the same time, I don't want to always be the go-to either. And so it's
Yeah.
that interesting, sort of balance between the two.
Yeah. No, that makes
Mhm.
sense, Ronnie. Yeah. So it's interesting because I've been doing this in IT for over 30 years, and I seem to always be one of the few, very few, typically not even a handful. No matter where I've been in higher education, I've been in the sports fitness world, business. Now I'm in aerospace. Um, it doesn't matter, and especially this IT thing. So IT is just very few, and so um, sometimes I'm the only one who can bring that perspective, right? And I hear you, Ronnie, when you say, maybe why am I always the one? I've kind of accepted that, right? It's okay. And I will say, hey, it doesn't have to be about me. Get this person or that person as we see more come on. But if I like the fact that at least people recognize that we need a different perspective. We need an advocate who looks different from the rest of us. The thing I don't want to ever be guilty of is stifling or holding others back from being that as well, right?
Right.
So I don't always have to be that person. If there's others, hey, how about we get this person to talk and get that person? So I think it is a balance, right? Because you're like, get us in, and then you're like, but not me. So just at least the fact that we're being asked to participate or our opinion is being solicited. Okay, so let's talk about, I think, Shonesha, you talked about how encouraging it is to see Black pilots and whatever. Maybe talk about a mentor or someone along in your career that's encouraged you or had a huge influence on your career, the person you are today.
I think it has been a couple of people along the way. I can remember there was a controller named Dino when I was training, and he is Hispanic, and he came up in the agency during a time when it was not the softer, kinder FAA. So he had a really, really hard time. And so he was one who spoke positivity into me a lot. It's almost like he could tell when I was having one of those days, and he would say to me, you belong here. Like, get the jersey, put the jersey on, because you are part of the team. So that was one. And then the other one was a trainer, and she was one of the original controllers at the new facility, and she was my trainer. And she was big in encouraging me just as a woman. And I don't know that she ever said anything overtly, but it was just her being. She protected me, she trained me, she kept me under her wing. So in a sense, that's how she mentored me. And I always looked at her as like almost a big sister type figure. So those two are the ones that I think about the most is Dino and Karen.
And it sounds like the operative word was encouraging and supportive, right? And sometimes, I mean, well, not sometimes, we need that. We always need that. But it's interesting that others can find things in us that we may be doubting about ourselves, and to kind of come along and stir up that emotion, like you can do this, and be those cheerleaders for us. So that's really good. Anybody else have any experiences with mentors or maybe even mentees that affirmed you um, or thanked you for what you've done in terms of advancing or encouraging them or promoting others to succeed and move forward? Put everybody in the spot. Well, we can move on. I don't want to continue to put my experiences in it, but I have um, had a couple of people who early on, and these weren't people who looked like me, and they were in higher education, white males who saw something in me, but recognized who I was. Right? They didn't see through. They saw me for who I am, a Black woman, and really encouraged me to explore and do different things and move outside of who the boundaries that I have set for myself, and pushed me. And I think that's really important to have those who encourage and push us. All right, so let's see. Navigating power structures in your career. So maybe Shonesha, have you had any experience navigating any difficult power structures or scenarios that you can share some of your experiences?
I navigate the power structure as the union rep. And so as a controller, my supervisors and my air traffic managers are my bosses. But as the union rep, my air traffic manager is my counterpart. We're on the same level. And that has been interesting. Thankfully, I represent a union that is strong. The air traffic controllers union is really strong. And so there's lots of support that's provided, and we have a really airtight contract with the agency, but it still is a power struggle daily. Now, I will say that this is not abnormal. Anytime you have labor relations, there is a power struggle. So it's twofold. It's a Black woman as the counterpart for the air traffic manager, but then there's the labor relations portion struggle as well. So that has been my biggest, I guess you could say, experience with navigating the power structure and just the bureaucracy and some of the red tape. And it's been interesting. The way I've been able to get through with that is having other union reps to support me. The leadership for the union is pretty on top of things, so that has been helpful as well, but it's been quite an experience. And that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, I was gonna put you on the spot and really go deep here and say, hey, can you give us an example of maybe something that's I don't want to get it too much into the if there's anything particular that you guys are dealing with it as part of the union, but just curious about how you know, maybe an example of how you've had to negotiate and maneuver through that.
Mm. Oh man, how do I think for us, everything is written out in our contract. And so for me, I use a lot of what's written as a support. There's processes in place to dispute things that the air traffic manager and I don't agree on. So that's what I do. I try to communicate. When that doesn't work, sometimes we have to get formal and have formal conversations and go through formal processes. And that's I'm actually in the middle of one of those right now. I don't really know how to explain it without going too deep into it because it really is kind of boring, but it's the best way I can describe it is just using the contract that's in place to support me and to prove my point and to get what is owed for the rights of the members and the controllers at the facility. I don't feel like I answered that quite right, Danita, but
That's okay. No. It's all good because I kind of put you on the spot going deeper on that question. So all good. I'm going to shift and raise the level a little bit and talk about encouragement. How do you encourage others to not give up? What do you think? And for the others on the call, maybe some things that you've done to really encourage others along the way. You want to start us off, Shonesha? Yeah.
sure. Yeah. For me, I think the biggest place that I see I can encourage is with our trainees. I try to check in with those who are training and I try to ask how they're doing. I try to see if their life outside of air traffic, if there's any obstacles or barriers there that may affect how they perform in the building. I try to show up for them for like training meetings and things like that because I want them to know that they're not alone. I want them to know that this isn't something that they have to fight through by themselves. That's really been the biggest way that I've been able to encourage people. And then even other controllers, because we aren't perfect. We all have those days where things go awry. And just being able to say, like, you had a bad moment, you had a bad session, shake it off, push past it. You're still a good controller. This is just a blip, you know?
I like that. The action or the mistake does not define who you are. It's a moment, right? It's a moment, and to encourage. I think that's really critical, right, for our children, for others, our teammates, even our peers, right? Being able to encourage them and speak kindness. All right, as we look to kind of wrap up this discussion, talk about, well, before I shift, any other comments, or I want to give anybody else who has a comment about the encouraging others, anything you share or want to share about how you maybe encourage others in your career or in your life experiences, parents and leaders, managers, spouses. I know, Shonesha, I guess that question that TJ had earlier where who was the better air traffic control, I guess you can encourage your husband to keep trying, right? Is it Ananga? Ananga, Daisy? You want to chime in? Yeah, go ahead.
So this morning I was surprised. I was looking for something I had written before. So I was trying to Google and find it, and I had saw someone quoted me, and it was weird because it said that I had apparently said that, you know, failure is relative. It's an opportunity to learn, to transform, to just go at it differently. And that is what I try to tell at least people on my team, that the problems that we're trying to solve are hard. And that if we fail early, that we have the opportunity to navigate and to look at it from a learning perspective, because I think sometimes in organizations and so forth, when we don't cultivate that culture or that safe space where people can see failure as a learning opportunity, that can be very, very discouraging.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. The whole intent is to really elevate one another, right? That's really, I think I mentioned to a peer of mine about there's a song about kindness and how we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable, and we can find ways to encourage each other and not see everything so as competitive or diminishing, whatever. I think that's really important. All right, so Shonesha, accomplishment, your most proud accomplishment. I mean, you're a union rep, so I've got an uncle who is a union rep, and so that's a pretty big thing. But maybe that's not the most obvious one for you. What would you say is an accomplishment that you've achieved that you're most proud of?
Off the top of the head, certifying as a controller, I think, is the biggest accomplishment career-wise that I am proud of. Naturally, personally, my family brings me pride. But career-wise, certifying as a controller is big. I went through college, and in the grand scheme of things, I kind of breezed through it. It wasn't terribly difficult for me. And so I had kind of gotten used to breezing through things. And then I met air traffic, and air traffic told me I was not breezing through this. And so when I got through with it, I knew that I had given it my all. I knew I had studied harder than I ever studied before. I knew that I had self-assessed and done so much work to get to the end of it that I really felt like I earned it. And so I would say that career-wise so far, that's my biggest accomplishment. Union rep, that is coming along as a close second. And I'm still developing and learning and evolving in that, like, literally daily. But as of now, being a controller that's the top.
That's awesome. As we hear about the shortage of air traffic controllers across the country, I think I can speak for this group. A really good thank you and your peers for everything that you do to keep us safe. As I prepare to fly back to New Mexico this afternoon, I am thankful for the work that you guys do. And I'm appreciative of your story, and thank you for sharing your story with us today. It's not easy switching careers, right? From having been trained in the social sciences or that area, and then the shift into air traffic control. That says a lot about you. And then to add on this union representative role speaks to your ability to want to connect and improve relationships for those who work alongside of you. So thank you so much, Shonesha, for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for participating and asking questions and engaging with us. We are looking to, oh, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Shonesha?
No.
Oh, okay. So we are going to close out our Black History Month. This is our meeting for Black History Month, and as we prepare for March into Women's History, just want to thank everyone for your time this Saturday morning. Look forward to having you join us for future meetings. And thank you again, Shonesha. Happy Saturday, everybody.
Thank you.